What's up, guys? Happy Thursday. We have 3 NBA regular season days left. Shout out to Unicorn and Jose in the chat, two of our most loyal viewers. Been here all season. Appreciate you guys. Where's the money coming from today? I don't know, but we got an interesting slate because Jalen Brunson, Zion, and Demantis are top of the model. Not sure we've seen these three in that order appear before, but we'll get into it. Nick, how we doing?
All right, man. Yeah, bittersweet that the season's winding down. Obviously, we enjoy putting out the content for you guys, granted NBA, but at the same time, I mean, these last few slates are just brutal. I mean, you got a few teams where the games matter, and then a lot of teams where they don't, and it's just really tough to know what some of these rotations are going to look like. Not that they're easy to read when we're in the middle of the regular season. So, throwing some darts here, definitely going to get involved tonight, but can't feel super confident in much, but yeah, we do have some value. We do have some quality pay ups. There's a couple teams on the slate with games that still matter, so we'll tackle it and hopefully come out on top.
Yeah, I do like that. At least it's only a 5 game slate. The tomorrow it looks like we got like 15 games. I don't know if DraftKings cut it down. Then Saturday we're off. Sunday we'll have a 14 gamer, or however they decide to chop it up. But yeah, we got a nice and easy one today. Let's take a look at some of these injury news. Like the Wizards are kind of decimated, and sorry, it's still loading for me. Who else you got, Nick, on the injury report?
Yeah. So you said the Wizards. I don't think they're on the slate, so that just threw me off.
Oh,
Um,
maybe that was for tomorrow. Then my
no,
bad.
you're good. Yeah, the Bulls are interesting. Drummond's out. They have no AO either. Um, I'm pretty interested in maybe getting to Javante Green again. I don't know if he's going to be very popular. He's been a pretty low on value play the last few days. That's actually been performing well. Utah is a major situation here. We have no Collins. We have no Markkinen. We have no Kessler. We have no Clarkson. We have no Sexton. They sent half this team to Cancun or wherever. So we're playing guys like Horton Tucker tonight. Lucas Salmonek profiling is one of the best plays on the slate. Never something to get too excited about, but yeah, they're playing a Rockets team that's kind of out of it as well. Definitely healthier than Utah. Still no Sengun though. And yeah, man, I mean, still no Ingram for the Pels. The Kings are still playing meaningful basketball. The Warriors are playing meaningful basketball, but they have no Clay or Draymond tonight in a very soft matchup against the Blazers. Blazers have Banton, questionable, who's been really solid lately. If he's out, we're gonna like scoot even more than we already do. Boston, I think half the team's questionable. We got to keep an eye on this one. Their games don't matter. I still think they like to show out against the Knicks for whatever reason. So maybe they give some of these guys more run than usual tonight, but they're really playing for nothing. So I don't know why they're I don't know, giving these guys close to regular minutes. And then the Pistons, I think Cunningham's already been ruled out, which makes Jaden Ivey very interesting. I'm not going to chase another Malachi Flynn ceiling game, but Chimeze Metu, shout out to Douche in our Discord. King of the Metu fan club should be getting some love here tonight with no Isaiah Thomas. But I think I covered a decent amount of it. I'm sure there's other spots we're missing, but yeah, pretty fluid slate. And there is a huge gap in the middle I do want to bring up. So there's a game that logs at 7:30 Eastern, and then we have nothing until 9 p.m. Then 3 late games. So plenty of opportunity to late swap. If you aren't doing well early, get off of the chalk and hopefully climb those leaderboards late. But yeah, man, kind of a weird slate. 5 games. But yeah, some news we already have. I don't know how much else we're still waiting on, though.
Nice, well done. In terms of teams playing for something tonight, so Chicago is basically locked in. They don't
Mhm.
Chicago, Detroit doesn't matter. New York, Boston, like it's funny we brought up that that thought that the Bucks don't want to finish in second so they don't have to play the Sixers in the first round. Knicks are currently in third, 2 games behind the Bucks, but they're basically tied with the Cavs. They have
Mhm.
one less loss, and so maybe 3 and 4 switch places. I doubt that matters much. Houston's out. Sacramento wants to win. I don't think it matters too much though. They're going to be in the play-in either way. And the Pelicans, yeah, Pelican. This is actually a pretty important game.
Yeah.
Pelicans and Sacramento. The winner possibly doesn't have to play in the play-in. More likely, the Pelicans. It's more important for the Pelicans than it is the Kings, though. And then
Yep.
Golden State wants to win.
Hmm.
Boston players are in. Yes, they are.
Got it.
And all right, so let's take a look at the highest ownership. So we went through Utah. It looks like Utah, Chicago. A little bit of Houston guys are showing up at the top, but I mean, you already mentioned THT, Lucas Samanich, Omer Yurtseven. I mean, I'm kind of surprised Yurtseven is so low owned. I felt like he was the guy I'd be interested in the most. I kind of get it though with the pricing on THT and Lucas Samanich, but like if you're starting that dummy right now, who of these guys at the top are you throwing in?
Man, it's weird. Like I honestly don't feel super great about any of them.
Mm.
Yurt Seven finally had that huge game we were kind of waiting on. It came against Denver. They needed him on the floor with Jokic in there. The Houston Rockets without Sengun could run small, and we have seen them run small at times against teams like Golden State, where Yurt Seven only got 19 minutes. Even the Clippers, I think Zubac was out that game. He only played 21 minutes, so it's kind of dicey. I do like him here. Obviously, tons of upside with both Kessler and Collins out of the lineup. But if they decide to go small, maybe some Darius Baisley gets minutes at the five, it
Mm.
could turn sour quick. So personally, I think I trust Samanich most just because he's going to be starting and he should play over 30 minutes. And like as I'm saying that, I'm like choking on the words because it doesn't feel great. But yeah, I mean, THT on DK 3,700. It's going to be tough for him to hurt you over there. On FanDuel, it's more of a conversation where he's priced over 5K. I don't think you need to play him there. And then I know we always get love for Johnny Juzang in the chat. Coming off a terrible game, but he has played 30 plus minutes 3 straight in a row. I do think he has upside here. I'd kind of group him in with those others. And I don't know, man. Keontae George has been kind of terrible, and I don't know what the deal is. Maybe he's just not engaged because most of his teammates aren't with the team. But you would think with Clarkson, Dunn, and who else is it? Uh, Sexton all out that he'd be having better performances. He's just been terrible. At 6K on paper, though, he does make sense. But yeah, I guess if I'm ranking them, it's probably Samanich first, probably tied with THT on DK, followed by Yurt 7, and then Juzang. But I don't know, man. How confident can we be in the Utah Jazz right now?
Yeah, not confident at all. And what I was going to say was going by DK value, the order of the model, it's THT, Yurt7, and Salmonish. But I think I agree with you that Salmonish is the guy that I'd feel most comfortable with. And then I like THT's price. We'll see what kind of other options we have at shooting guard, small forward position. But I mean, Yurt7 at 4,500 is hard to argue with too. And so I mean,
Mhm.
those three obviously the top guys, and then like you said, Keontae George just hasn't. He hasn't been that guy. He's tired, man. He's not used to playing these minutes in the NBA. So
That's true.
I like that you mentioned Baisley. His ownership on FanDuel is actually insane at 42%, 3,800. 16%, 3,600 on DraftKings. So I think he's definitely worth taking some shots if he's not going to get nearly as much love as everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the minutes are there for him, which is what we care about the most. And I don't know, FanDuel, yeah, it's tough to come by some of these value plays. Again, THT over there is 5K plus. Like they priced a lot of these other guys up that are cheap on DK. So I get that he's super popular there, but I don't know. I'm not expecting more than like 20, 25 fantasy points max.
Nice. Alejandro and Chad, I have a lineup with Brunson, CJ, Murphy, Sabonis, and the Utah Scrubs. I mean, that sounds probably pretty close to what I'll be working with today. Brunson seems great.
Yeah.
Sabonis, he had like the worst game of his life in the previous one, right? Don't mind
Yeah.
going right back
Yeah, I
there.
guess OKC really struggled there, but I don't know. I'm fine going back there. I mean, I'd add Fox into that group too, but if you're playing Brunson, it's easier to get to Sabonis. But yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty good, man. I like where your head's at for sure.
Yeah, like that group. I'm pretty interested in all those guys, and I'm gonna add Zion in there too. The Pelicans are pretty interesting today.
Yeah, that's the
Uh,
one game where it really matters for both teams, I think.
I want to talk about Golden State a little bit more in depth since they're missing a couple key guys. I mean, Steph Curry, we haven't been interested in him. They actually, I would have expected his price to be a little bit lower since it's been closer to 8K recently. But at 9K, 10% ownership, I mean, is this the spot to take shots on Steph?
Yeah, I mean, you need him to outscore guys like Fox and Brunson,
Hmm.
which I'm not super confident in him doing. But if you're playing multiple lineups, it does make sense to get over the field. Obviously, he could outperform them. This is a great matchup against Portland. If this game stays close, and I think it could, honestly, Golden State needs to win right now, though. I mean,
Hmm.
they could fall anywhere, I think, from the 7 or 8 to the 10 or 11 seed. Like, they have a really wide range of outcomes. The bottom of those Western standings are really all over the place right now. So I like him, man, but it's more of a tournament pivot. Like if I'm only playing one lineup, I do think Brunson's probably my favorite, then Fox, then Curry. But I mean, the ownership's going to reflect that as well. So there's definitely like game theory to playing Curry over those guys, especially with Clay and Draymond out. I mean, you'd have to think the usage goes up a little bit. But again, I mean, sometimes it seems that Curry has his best games with Draymond on the floor. Not exactly a hot take. I think here it's such a good matchup that it might not matter. Um, but yeah, I'm fine with it. But it's more of a tournament pivot in high risk contest than anything else.
And like as for the role players, I feel like the model's not that updated because these ownerships seem a little bit too low to me. I think I mean I could probably find a reason to get to anyone on this list. Is there anyone that stands out more than the others?
I like Wiggins, I think, more than the field does. He's probably going to get the start here at the three. The minutes have been consistent. He fills kind of that thin small forward, power forward spot. And yeah, he can get you 30 to 40 fantasy points here in a great matchup. So if anything stands out, like given the ownerships, I think it's probably Wiggins. Kuminga's been okay. I will say Jackson Davis is pretty interesting, especially if you don't trust Yurt Chalk or some of the other popular centers on this slate. With no Draymond, he should play 25 plus minutes against a pretty big Portland team. But yeah, Wiggins is kind of my guy here. I do like his upside at very low ownership.
Nice. Yeah, I think I basically like all these guys more than the field. Trace
Yeah,
Jackson Davis especially kind of stands out to me. 5,700 at 9% ownership. I mean, he's 22 on FanDuel at 63. He has power forward eligibility over there, but other than like year 7 and probably 8 and
I love Aiden
Sabonis,
tonight.
like yeah, we
Yeah.
have a lot. We have some good center options over on DraftKings, but I think we definitely want to mix in TJD more than 9%.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think he has power forward eligibility on FanDuel too,
On FanDuel, yeah. Yeah,
which makes
that's
it
that's
really interesting.
huge.
Yeah, and I love Aiden tonight. I mean, we'll get
Mhm.
to Portland, but he's been awesome, more consistent than a lot of the other plays we have in this 8K range. So like the idea of playing them together in that late game, and if anything changes, you could pivot because it is the last game on the slate.
Uh, Alejandro, someone told me Fox struggles against Herbert Jones. I just looked it up whenever De'Aaron Fox has played against Herb Jones. In the previous game, he had 3 points, 2 rebounds, and 4 assists, but every other game, I mean, he had one game where he had 14 and 2 last year, but other than that, it's nothing out of the ordinary against Herb Jones. It's a small sample size, too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's had some bad games, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's enough for me to rank Brunson over him, but it's not enough for me to say don't play De'Aaron Fox. But if you're looking for like a tiebreaker or something, it's fine. But I wouldn't overthink a one-on-one matchup necessarily.
And so let's go ahead and jump into the guards. And so sounds like Brunson's your top pay up for sure.
Yeah, he's just been tremendous. I mean, the team's on his back right now. I mean, they're still playing meaningful basketball, and even if they weren't, I mean, Tibbs is the type of guy to give his players 40 minutes anyway. But yeah, I mean, he's gone over 55 FanDuel points, I think 60 DK points in 4 games straight. Obviously, not a great matchup here against Boston, but Boston can kind of start to take their foot off the gas, and yeah, Brunson just keeps chugging along. So I like him. I like his upside. I mean, 4 60-point games in a row. That's crazy to me. But yeah, I don't recommend game log watching, but player like that, you look at the minutes, he's playing almost 40 every single night.
And it's a super low total, 2 point spread. Boston's 2 point favorites. I don't think we were too worried about that. Did you happen to see this stat? Like, so you mentioned Brunson's been going off recently, and OG Anunoby's back. Uh, the Knicks with OG Anunoby are like they have the best offense in the NBA this season, and they have the best defense in the NBA this season, and that basically means they're the best team of all time. Basically, when OG Anunoby's on the court, like I'm not even joking. Like these are some of the best rates of all time. For the best teams this season, and so uh, just Knicks are good.
Yeah, they are. It's going to be interesting with no Randall in the playoffs. I mean, we could go off on that whole conversation, but yeah, man. I mean, in the regular season, they play such a tight rotation. They're better than most teams because they run kind of a deeper bench. But yeah, I think in the playoffs, maybe that flushes out a little bit, and teams like the Celtics should be able to handle them over 7 games. But yeah, tonight, where the game doesn't matter for the C's, I do like Brunson a ton. Um, but yeah, don't mind OG either, even though he's not really a DFS guy.
Yeah. Uh, Unicorn and chat Brunson due for a bad game. So I don't think anyone's ever due.
Mm.
And so he could have a bad game, sure, but he's not due for a bad game.
Yeah, and you got to think too. I mean, on a slate like this, if a bad game for him is 50 points, if he still outscores Fox and Curry, like he's still probably optimal. So yeah, it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, we don't have like the super pay-ups on the slate, so
Yeah, there's
we don't
none.
we don't need those like. It's like how many times has Luca not been in the optimal? He put up 77 the other night. He wasn't in like any of the top 5 lineups, and so we don't have to worry about that tonight.
Yeah.
Does Green get the start tonight for Chicago?
Um,
Javante Green.
yeah, I think he's projected to start here with Donsumu out. They could go to Torrey Craig. I'll say this though, on DK where he's only 4,400, I'd play him no matter what. He's just been awesome, taking a ton of shots lately for whatever reason. Um, and yeah, rebounding too. I mean, coming off 3 games, or he's gone for 8+3 straight, 12 rebounds this last game, 13-2 before that. That really raises his floor. And yeah, I just feel like the field's kind of overlooking him for whatever reason. Yeah,
Uh,
where's the ownership? 14 on DK, 16 on FanDuel. It's come up a little bit, but yeah, even it's like we're getting Caruso back tonight. We've had Caruso out with Ayo playing. But yeah, I mean, Ayo demands more usage than Caruso, so I still really like the spot for him.
and Unicorn, you play the odds. I gotta ask you like what odds, because him having 4 games in a row, good games in a row, doesn't affect his odds for tonight. And like if you want to play the odds, like looking at Vegas odds, his over under right now is 41.5 with a pretty decent. It's pretty decently favored to the over. And you got to think if he gets 41.5 points, rebounds, assists, it's going to be a pretty good fantasy score for his price. So
Yeah,
and but keep in mind, like it's going to work out. I mean, according to Vegas, it works out 2/3 of the time, and so 33% of the time, it's not going to. But
all right.
let's get back to the guards. What about in the mid range? Like just sorting by ownership. I mean, Kobe White's kind of mid range. Amon Thompson, Scoot, Jalen Green. I know you mentioned Scoot earlier. I'm pretty interested in him too.
Yeah, we have Banton questionable. I think regardless, Scoot's going to look really good here. Another one I'm really interested in is Jaden Ivey. Kind of shocked that he's not more popular. I know the price isn't super appealing, but I don't mind the matchup against Chicago, even though they are kind of still playing. They're not playing for anything, but they're a playoff team. But yeah, I mean, we've just seen Ivy have a massive ceiling whenever Cunningham's out. I know, like, the first instinct is to go to guys like Sasser and even Flynn, but I don't know. Ivy's taking all the shots here, and I really, really do like him sub 10% on both sites. Even paying a premium for him on FanDuel, I think it's a really good way to get different if you're eating a lot of chalk at other positions.
Just power hot take. Jalen Green outscores Curry. I don't think it's a hot take. I have Jalen Green scoring more fantasy points than Curry today. So
I mean, it's a great matchup for both of them.
yeah.
Yeah, I can see it, man. I mean, you got Van Fleet a little bit cheaper. He's the one coming off the big game there, but like I don't know. Both those guards have great upside, and like if you don't want to pay up into that 9K range for the Fox and Brunsons, etc., or Curry, I mean Green and Van Fleet look good.
You guys are awesome. Better just listen. Hey, I love the back and forth, man. If you think we're wrong about something or
Yeah,
disagree with us, like just tell us why. Love to discuss it. Is Javante Green a strong play or a weak play? I kind of feel like he's more on the strong side than the weak side.
I do. Yeah, I mean the minutes haven't been super consistent, but like I said, when he's on the floor, the fantasy point per minute rate is kind of shockingly good. Taking a
Yeah.
ton of rebounds here, and they have no Drummond, so like I don't know how much he's going to be staggered with Vucevic. I'd have to go on Popcorn Machine and look. But yeah, it is something that he's averaging 10 boards a game over his last 3. Like, I don't think that's sustainable. But at the same time, with Drummond out, like, if they're playing small, um, I do think he's probably good for 8-ish boards here. And I mean, if he makes a few of those threes, he's already at value at 4,400. So I like him a lot, especially at the relatively low ownership.
Yeah, I think his ownership, like regardless, it's definitely too low.
Yeah.
And then I mean at the bottom end, we talked about it a little bit, but THT, like he's 20% on FanDuel, so that's a little bit easier of a decision. But on DraftKings, 53%. Like, would you want to be well over the field, a bit under the field?
I mean, probably close to the field, honestly. Like, I hate having a hot take on THT. Like, my gut always says to
Yeah.
fade him, and then he goes off. Right now, the rotation is so thin that they really do need him. And, like, if you look at the bench, there's just not a lot of guys that can score the basketball. We talked about Baisley earlier. They have, like, Mika Porter. Like, these are not guys that shoot often. So yeah, THT, whenever he's on the floor, he's going to be commanding that offense. We talked about Keontae George, how he hasn't really looked like himself. Maybe he's fading, maybe he's disengaged. But yeah, THT, maybe the most aggressive offensive player on this roster right now, which is hilarious. But yeah, 3,700. I mean, you could almost lock him in. I wouldn't, just because on a 5-game slate. I don't know. There's plenty of different ways to go tonight for value, but I do think he's one of the better plays on DK, and on FanDuel, not really eager to get there. But yeah, I mean, I guess it would depend on your Samonik ownership. Like, if you could kind of hedge some of that THT with Samonich, I think it would make sense. But if they're both super popular, I'd rather just play them than not.
Yeah, I'm kind of in my head. I'm going back and forth on whether or not I like his price on FanDuel, and right now I lean towards no.
Yeah.
But DraftKings 3,700. I mean, he played 32 and 26 in the last couple games. He's projected for 28 tonight, and he took 23 shots. To your point on him being the most aggressive player on Utah, like we know he'll put shots up. So um, I'm probably going to be over the field. I'm not going to lock him, but I'll probably still be a bit over that 50%.
Yeah.
I think we can go ahead and move on to forwards. Oops, here. All right, top of the model, OF index, Zion, Jason Tatum, DeMar. That's kind of all the studs we have on the slate. I mean, Josh Hart, apparently Eamon Thompson's a pseudo stud, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, what stands out from here? DeMar DeRozan, insane ownership.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to get away from DeMar because of the matchup, and with AO out, I mean, that's definitely going to help his usage. But I've already talked about how bullish I am on Green, so maybe if I could find some pivots, I'm kind of comfortable to get away from it. But yeah, on paper, he does look great here. It's just a great matchup. The usage is there. I mean, the thing is, like, he's consistently hitting 40 fantasy points, but at that price, you almost want a little more out of him, and we really haven't been getting that. So in like high risk contest, I am comfortable getting away from that. And something low risk or like a small field single entry, I would just play him because I think he makes more sense than some of the Boston guys. Like, we don't know how many minutes Boston's going to be playing their starters. It seems like they're kind of floating around 30 for the most part right now. So obviously, guys like Brown, Tatum, etc., have upside, but I do trust DeRozan more. He's played 40 minutes in 3 straight games, so I don't know. I just minutes over everything in DFS. For me, he's just safer than a lot of the other forwards in that 8K range. If you could find a few extra dollars to get to Zion, I do prefer him as a pivot there. But again, just such a great matchup here for the Bulls, and I don't know. It's just kind of priced where he should be. But again, 40 minutes every night is great to see. And yeah, Thibs no longer with the Bulls, but he's getting Thibs like run.
And DeMar, it's kind of like he is a good play tonight. He's definitely a good play. He's not 50% ownership good, but I
Yeah.
get why he's this high. Because it's like Zion's kind of a pivot, a little bit more expensive, but these Boston guys, like you just said, like we have Tatum for 35 minutes, Jaylen Brown for 34, and Kristaps Porzingis for 28 and a half. I'm pretty sure I would bet half my bankroll that none of them get to these minutes projections. Like they're not playing for anything, and we've seen situations, maybe not against teams as good as the Knicks. Like maybe this is like practice for the playoffs. Like we might see him later, whatever. But we've seen this team and this coach, Joe Mazzulla, just not start his starters in the second half. So I think it's a possibility. I probably wouldn't bet half my bankroll they all play less. That's a little bit extreme of a risk. But the point is, I don't think that they're going to play full minutes. I think there's a really good chance they don't. But because otherwise, I mean, you're getting 3 of the best players in the NBA at 3%, 2%, 1% ownership. But I don't even think they're worth taking those 1% shots.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you, man. The minutes are just tough to read, and like if someone gets a hot hand, they could get the extra run. I mean, as things line up right now, if the Celtics and the Knicks both win their first round series, I think they would play in the second round. So to your point, maybe there is some strategy here. Um, but yeah, I don't know. There's no incentive to really run these guys into the ground. So yeah, I'm with you. I'd rather go elsewhere if we can find forwards we like.
And Vegas completely agrees too, because these are the lowest props I've ever seen for these Celtics players across the board. Derek White, 20 and a half points, rebounds, assists. Jason Tatum, 33 and a half. Drew Holiday, 18 and a half. Like if they get to these projections that Vegas has, they're not going to pay off their tag at all. And so even though they're so low owned, it probably doesn't matter much. And maybe it affects New York a little bit.
Mhm.
But I think I started on that rant just trying to justify why DeMar was so high owned, but
Yeah, no, I mean that is the reason, and you'll go through and you're building these lineups, and you're going to see that like forward is thinner than guard and center, as it often is. I mean, we do have Trey Murphy for a little bit cheaper. I think we're talking about getting up to Zion, but you could also go down to Murphy. Again, this game between the Pels and the Kings is one that matters. With Ingram out, you've seen his usage really jump in a notable way. Herb Jones hasn't been playing great, but yeah, he's another guy kind of in a similar range there. Murphy's shooting guard, small forward, so you have to play him with small forward, not power. But still, I do think he's a viable pivot. Um, but yeah, man, like I don't want to play Dylan Brooks. I know he's been playing really well. I brought up Wiggins earlier. I think both him and Kuminga are kind of interesting in that late game. Kuminga hasn't gone over 30 minutes in weeks, though. I don't know what the deal with that is. So again, I really do like Wiggins again at a thin position with no Draymond, with no Clay. I think he gets some extra run. Um, but yeah, it is pretty tough tonight. And then the Knicks have all their great wings, but it's that situation of which of these guys do you want to roll the dice on? Like Hart's priced up, but he's good most of the time. But I don't think there's another player in the league in the 7 to 8K range that has single digit games as often as he does.
yeah.
And it's usually only when I play him. So yeah, I think I'd rather go to OG for a little bit cheaper. But again, he's not really an offensive player. So I just find myself on a ton of Murphy, a lot of Zion. And again, I don't love how popular DeRozan is, but if you could just lock 40 points into your lineup at such a thin position, I do think it makes some sense.
I'm gonna start by ownership here. I mean, we already talked about THT, Lucas Samanich. We're both into. I mean, Caruso, Metu, Baisley's pulling some decent ownership. I think it's fine. Javante
Yeah.
Green pulling pretty decent ownership. I mean, anything else standing out? Like of the guys
Um,
like 10% plus owned or anyone less than 10% you want to mention?
yeah, I don't see Keegan Murray. Oh, there he is. Yeah, Keegan Murray's kind of interesting to me. Again, I mean, I just think the minutes are safer in this Pels Kings game, more so than anywhere else, just because both these teams have something to play for. Obviously, no Herder or Monk there. He's been seeing increased usage. If Herb Jones does lock in on Fox, I mean, that's going to create a lot of open looks for Murray. So I think there is some merit to maybe going to Keegan Murray there. Other than that, I mean, we're talking about all these super chalky Jazz players. They do still have a guy named Bryce Sensabaugh coming off the bench. I think could spike an upside. Could say the same for Hendricks. Really don't like either very much, but just from like game theory, it's not going to be shocking if one of those guys go off and the chalk kind of struggles. So if you're playing a ton of lineups tonight, those are viable pivots. Can't say I'm confident in either. But yeah, I do think Keegan Murray is something that I would have circled.
Okay, nice. Gonna start by value. I mean, just some other guys near the top. Dylan Brooks at a sub 10% ownership. Javante Green, Amon Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Lucas Samanich, Metu, Keegan Murray. So it's a bunch of guys that we've been mentioning all day, like not including Dylan Brooks. We haven't been mentioning him, but I mean,
He's been
I don't
good, man.
like top of model, low ownership. If you're making a bunch of lineups, I don't see any reason not to mix them in.
Yeah. Yeah, you did just mention Metu. I know we talked about him at the start of the show. I think he's going to get some love on both sides. He's been pretty solid. I don't mind getting to him.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's like Cade Cunningham is out, so maybe it affects Metu's usage a little bit. But I mean, 35 and 43 minutes. We're just really hoping he plays 35 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. Hot take 2: Ayton outscores Sabonis. That is a
Ayton,
hot take. That might be a hot take.
it's kind of a hot take, but I mean, Ayton's gone over 50 more often recently, I think, if we're just kind of lining up their game logs. But
Mm-hmm.
I already said Ayton might be my favorite play on the slate, like in terms of payups, point per dollar. I mean, Sabonis probably safer in that competitive game, but you're paying 2K more. So even if he doesn't outscore him, I think he certainly can and probably will point per dollar. So a little bit of a hot take, but I'm kind of there with you, man. I think Ayton's going to be in most of my lineups tonight.
I mean, just looking at the pricing and scrolling through, I think I'll have more Ayton than Sabonis tonight as well. Not getting too much Sabonis right now, actually. I thought I'd have more.
Yeah.
Jose Morales, 4,000 at utility spot, best recommendation. I don't know if you're an Occupy member or not, but if you have access to the model, you can just sort the slider up here, put it down to like I don't know, 4,100 and just sort by value. I mean, assuming you already have THT and Lucas Samanich in there, the next options are Moses Moody, Johnny Juzang, Ryan Rupert. It's kind of gross, but model likes a couple of them, I guess.
Yeah. Um, I guess maybe Juzang. I know he's coming off a dud. His two games before that were solid, though. I think he's going to be safe to play 30 plus minutes here. So, of that group you just read from, it's Juzang. If you don't already have Javante Green, he's 400 more. I really, really do like him if you can find the extra salary. But you don't want to use your utility spot on a game that's locking early. Just make sure you kind of flip flop your construction so you can pivot if you need to.
And this is a good transition into centers. Larry Nance is out. So I was looking at Joval earlier, and he has a pretty good value score. I mean, 5,200 and 5,900 at modest ownership. I imagine ownership goes up a little bit, but we saw him blow up in a similar spot a few games ago. And I mean, the other games, other than the game he blew up, he's been putting up like 7 fantasy points. So super risky. But what do you think about Valanciunas?
Yeah, I've pretty much sworn him off this year. He had that big game against the Spurs. It was Mamu and Wemby starting, and Nance was out, and obviously Ingram's out. He got to 45 DK points, which is maybe his best game this year. But even in that tremendous performance, he only played 27 minutes. So I don't know, man. I at 5,200, it's very tempting.
Yeah.
He's a pretty good play. Like you have to think he has a good shot to outscore Yurt7. Like if Yurt7 was super chalky, I think he'd be a good pivot. But I don't know that we see much leverage in those ownerships. So I don't know. I'd rather just pay up to Aiton or find a few extra hundred and go to Jackson Davis in that late game. I definitely like both of them more point per dollar. Um, but yeah, man, he should do well here. The minutes have just been so inconsistent, though. Like he's so
Yeah.
risky.
Yeah, it's like so. Just looking at my projections, I actually have Yurt 7 projected for more fantasy points than Jovel. But it's got to be like some kind of safety net because, like you said, Jovel could put up 4, but the ceiling is probably higher than Yurt 7. He's going to hit it more often than Yurt 7's going to hit the ceiling. I think he's worth taking some risks if he stays like 10% owned.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, 40 plus fantasy point upside is somewhat appealing.
Yeah.
Probably helps to have him on the floor against the bonus as much as you can, but um, yeah, I don't know. It seems like they aren't inclined to give him much run here.
Yeah, and Yurt so we both agree Yurt 7, the model agrees Yurt 7's a better play, but the ownership difference is worth making some pivots if you're making a bunch.
Yep.
Surprised Javon Carter isn't getting any love. Let's take a look at Javon Carter.
Yeah, I mean, I could kind of speak to this a little bit. I think we're going to have either Green or Craig starting. I think those are both better value plays. And yeah, we have no AO tonight, which I think is why maybe you're thinking about Javon Carter. But we've had a lot of games with no Caruso, and Carter hasn't been getting any runs. So I don't know. I feel like he's not really a major part of this rotation right now. He's coming off the bench behind guys like Terry and Craig and Green. Um, so yeah, for me, it's a no. But yeah, I just don't think he's going to play minutes. I don't even know if he's going to pop in the model for 10 plus. Um,
We have him at 11 right now. If nothing else needs to be updated, he's
yeah,
basically the bottom of the model. I will say one of the only GPPs I won this season did have Javon Carter at mid price, putting up like a 12, and that was just enough to fit the other guys in. But
okay. All
I
things
don't.
simple.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be too interested in Javon Carter tonight.
No, again, I love Javante Green.
Yeah. So other centers, I mean, Yurt 7, we've been talking up. I mentioned Trace Jackson Davis, I think is a really good play. We'll have to see. I'll refresh in a second, see if the ownership goes up. But I mean, the model thinks he's phenomenal value. Jovel, Chemezi Metu. So those are guys we've talked about already. Aiton's not too far behind. Isaiah Hartenstein, Jabari Smith, and I'm actually kind of interested in Vucevic. I don't think I realized Drummond was out, so I didn't
Yep.
understand why he was popping so much for me. But like, I mean, Vucevic is kind of a pay up, and then Jabari and Isaiah Hartenstein in the mid range. What do you think about these guys?
All three, I think, make a lot of sense. All point per dollar, really solid plays. Hartenstein feels too cheap here. Not a good matchup against Boston, but again, he's going to probably play around 30 minutes. You mentioned Vooch, no Drummond, definitely getting increased run for that reason. Like Adama Sanogo, I think, is the backup center there.
Nice.
They're really not inclined to give him any minutes, it seems. So, yeah, Vooch is going to be on the floor as long as they're going big. And yeah, I mean, if Detroit chooses to give Wiseman run, I think that's even more minutes for Boucher if this game is competitive. But yeah, all three of those guys you listed, man, I think make plenty of sense. But I will say Jackson Davis, after eight, and probably my favorite kind of quote unquote value play at center tonight. Just think he's under owned with Draymond out.
Nice. So Jabari Walker, kind of similar to Darius Baisley. Darius Baisley, 16% owned on DraftKings, 42 on FanDuel at basically the same price. And Jabari Walker, 6% on DraftKings at 6,300, but he's 36% owned on FanDuel at 5,500. Like, is this correct? Are you eating this chalk?
So the thing with Jabari Walker is with Kamara and Murray out, he has tons of upside. Games with Ayton out too, he's been tremendous. But we have Chris Murray back, and Ayton in playing plenty of minutes. So I still think Walker could spike an upside, but I think he's overpriced. Like he's priced to have Murray out, I think. So
Even
yeah,
on FanDuel?
what is he? 50?
5,500 on FanDuel.
It's okay. um, yeah, I don't know. I'd rather play Wiggins.
Okay, that's a pretty interesting pivot. Yeah, if you guys don't like the Walker chalk, I mean, Wiggins is a pivot option. I will say I like Jabari Walker on FanDuel a lot today.
Yeah.
If I was playing there, so
If Banton's out, I need to emphasize that he'd be a much better play. But I just don't trust his usage. It's so inconsistent with all these other guys healthy. But yeah, I mean, we've seen the ceiling. We know what he's capable of. But I think with Murray back, it's tougher for me to get there as chalk. If he was low owned, I'd honestly be more interested. But yeah, as a chalky play, I don't love him at the price necessarily.
any other centers that we haven't mentioned yet? Duran, Trey Lyles. Like, I don't know if there's anyone else.
I mean, Duran's okay. Probably wouldn't get there. He hasn't been playing
Yeah.
30 minutes consistently. Can't really go to Boston. Cornette killed me the other night. That was a rough one. But yeah, like I said, I'm loading up on Ayton. Really like getting to Jackson Davis, mixing in Sabonis, Hartenstein, and Jabari Smith, and then Vooch. I mean, I don't know. That's pretty much my center pool, and I don't even know if I have enough lineups to get them all in. So I'm not digging too deep at center.
Nice. Same though. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it pretty simple at center, just like I have been all season. White 7,100 versus Detroit. Assuming that's Derek White. Derek White's
No, Kobe
Kobe
White.
White. Kobe White 7,100. I think he seems fine. I mean, his ownership's high. I mean, DeMar's pulling all the chalk. I think DeMar is such an awesome play. I don't mind playing Kobe White instead of or alongside of him.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the leverage pivot. Like if Demar has a floor game, you have to think Kobe White's having a really good game. So there is some leverage there. I mean, White hasn't been performing super well, but that's with Ao in the lineup. Again, they're getting Caruso back, losing Ao tonight. Ao definitely demands more usage than Caruso, so we could see White kind of spike some upside here. Wouldn't shock me at all. And I think at the discounted ownership, it makes some sense to make that pivot in tournaments. I trust Demar much more. Just want to make that clear. But again, we're talking game theory. It would make sense maybe to pivot some of your lineups with DeMar off of DeMar and get to a little bit of Kobe White, because in a world where Kobe White has a great game, probably means DeMar isn't getting there as chalk.
So maybe it's like the ownership I have on the other guards. There's a lot of good guards tonight, but Kobe White 6,500 on DraftKings, even at 36% ownership, this is a really good play.
Yeah.
Okay, let's refresh the model, and then who's the first player in the dummy, man? Don't say THT.
Lucas Samanic.
All right, let's do it. Are we throwing DeMar in there too?
Yeah, let's do it, man. We've
Okay.
talked enough about him. I think it makes sense.
Okay, Lucas Samanic, DeMar DeRozan. I think DeMar and Kobe White are both. I might have both of them in my single entry tonight.
Yeah, I know I talked about the leverage pivot, but at Kobe's price on DK, I think you're definitely fine to play them both together.
So after that, in terms of like the ownership, I didn't even notice Kobe White was 5th in ownership. Maybe this updated.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's kind of.
But like, I mean, Brunson. It sounds like you're pretty into Brunson. You want to throw Brunson in the dummy?
Yeah, Brunson and Nathan are my quote unquote pay ups tonight. If we get to
Let's
both
do
of
it.
them, I'd be
Yeah,
pretty happy.
Let's try it. Ayton, Brunson leaves us 5K for each position. I mean, we
Javonte
can.
Green.
Yeah, Javonte Green. I was gonna say, THT is pretty easy too.
Yeah, I just play him.
Javonte Green on THT at 3,700 for a guy that's gonna take 25 shots.
Right, exactly.
Hopefully, take 25. Leaves us 6,100 for guard and util. I mean, it's pretty decent.
I mean, I like Scoot in that late game, especially if Banton's out. Trying to see what else we have. Jackson Davis. Can we fit both of them? Jackson Davis is
Let's.
57, Scoot's 69, so maybe we're a
Yeah,
little bit
we
off.
can. We should have like
Or we're
100 left or
close.
200 left.
Yeah, but
Scoot. I can't math. No, we're we're
we're
400
close.
short.
Uh,
61. Oh, Scoot's 65. 69.
yeah.
Math.
Math,
Um,
math, math.
I was gonna say like Yurt 7 is 4,500.
Oh yeah,
Want to
I'm
see
fine.
what that leaves us. 7,700 at guard. So, I mean, I'm not playing anyone from Boston tonight.
No.
Yeah, so probably if even let's say we plug in Scoot, leaves us 800, can upgrade like I don't know, maybe THT
Salmonish even.
or Salmonage, yeah.
Wouldn't
So
argue with that. But yeah, no, I mean that's a pretty good build. And I did just want to ask one more time, what's Yurt Seven's ownership now at this point?
it's kind of high.
I know
Let's
initially
see.
it seemed low,
You're
but
at
now it's
7,
way up there.
37 on DraftKings, 18 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean I do like him. He's coming off a huge game, but again, I do think there is a little bit of risk in them going smaller here.
Hmm.
Again, against Houston, he played a ton of minutes against Joker. Don't necessarily need him to get that same run. His last two games against smaller teams only played around 20 minutes. So I like him. I think point per dollar is one of the best plays on the board. Tons of upside when he is on the floor, but just don't be shocked if maybe he doesn't play the same minutes he did against Denver.
Nice. So just looking at like our dummy build, it's kind of chalky, and just looking at the single entry that I like have built out right now, it's just mega chalk. Do you have a good low owned shout? Maybe 10% or under 10%?
Yeah, let's take a quick look here. So sorting by ownership, scrolling down.
Having trouble.
I mean, Jackson Davis is 9% owned. That's one.
Okay,
Um,
that's a good one. Yeah,
Yeah, Javante Green. I don't know if it's climbed. My last refresh was only 14, so he's helping us get a little different. Um,
Javante Green. Yeah, he's
um,
up to 21 and 30.
yeah, so Jackson Davis, I think, is a really solid one.
Nice.
Jaden Ivey standing out big time on DK. 6,600. Only I get a refresh, but 6% last I refreshed.
It's 13 and 14 right now.
I like
It's
Ivy
still pretty
more.
good
Yeah,
though. It's still pretty
yeah. I
good.
mean, for a 5 game slate, 13-14 isn't chalk. So yeah, I would like to get to a lot of Ivy. And I did just finally refresh. So let me see if there's anything else that's down that range. I mean, Wiggins is only 11. I don't love him. I think he makes some sense. Ju Zhang as a pivot off of some of the chalkier Utah pieces isn't crazy, around 10%.
I'm gonna
Again, these
say
are all kind of risky, but
yeah, like Joval's a decent pivot too, but he might be the riskiest of the bunch.
Hartenstein, 4% owned, 5,500.
I mean, we didn't talk about Sensabaugh much. Does he make sense as a pivot off the other Utah guys?
Does he make sense, Sabah?
Oh, I messed that up, dude. I
No,
could have
you good.
nailed that,
I
man.
mean, in terms of talent, I really like this kid. I just don't know why he hasn't been getting the extra run. So, yeah,
Mhm.
as a pivot, he makes sense. I trust Juzang's minutes more. So if
Yeah.
you, I don't know. I really have liked what I've seen from Sensabaugh, but again, I think these rotations are impossible to project right now. So if you're playing a ton of lineups, maybe set some rules where you're only getting two of these guys and create a group where you could kind of mix in Sensabaugh, Juzang, etc. Um, where we're seeing guys like Samonich and THT at 50+% owned, I mean, it does make sense to pivot a little bit, but I can't with confidence say, oh, it's going to be Sensabaugh, it's going to be Hendricks, it's going to be Juzang. So um, yeah, they're all fine as pivots, but it's tough to be bullish on any one individually. I will say Juzang of those three, the one I probably trust the most.
Another one is that Micah Potter.
It is 3K
Um,
flat. Um, Again, I mean, if we got word he was certainly going to get minutes, I'd have some interest, but he was DNP'd against Denver.
yeah.
So I mean, I will say this: if you're playing Yurt Seven, don't play Potter. It seems like the games where Yurt Seven's been limited, they're giving Potter some run at the five. Um, but yeah, probably a little too thin for me personally.
Oh man. 9-2 Eric in the chat. That's basically the build you just submitted. Shout out to us, man.
Hey, get it in there. I forgot it. I gotta go hand build, so it's all yours, man.
Yeah, I'll get this last one from Unicorn. Three Golden State players too much?
Depends on which ones I'd say, but no.
I
I
don't
like
think so.
Curry.
Yeah.
I like Wiggins, Pods. TJD looks good. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, like they're all cheap enough today that I don't mind any combination of three Golden State guys, even if it's like Steph and who's the next two most expensive. Maybe I wouldn't play Steph, Kaminga, and Wiggins, but probably any other combo of three guys I'd get to.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
some
I don't.
reason, Wiggins and Kaminga in the same lineup seems a little weird.
It does, and they're both going to start with Green out,
Yeah,
but I mean,
yeah.
it seems like they're kind of limiting Kaminga's minutes right now. I don't know why, because Kerr's been really singing his praises. I know he got hurt and he's kind of come back, but
They're saving him for the play-in.
yeah. They don't care about seed. Just get them on the floor when they're playing in. But yeah, I do like most of Golden State.
Let's see. Lyles, Baisley, Samanich. Which one out of these three? Well, the model has Samanich number one. I'd say to like look at the rest of your ownership though. If your ownership, like if you have a couple pivots already low on guys, and I would say just go with the model Samanich. Brandon Pajemski actually just jumped to the top of value, so this is a pretty good pivot on Golden State. But I mean, do you have an answer other than that for Samanich, Baisley, and Lyles?
As always, keep an eye on starting lineups. As long as Salmon's just starting on the wing there for Utah, it's him. I know he's chalky, but he's definitely safer than the others. There is a world where Baisley gets to start over him. Super
Mm-hmm.
easy to pivot. Baisley's
Mm-hmm.
cheaper, so you
Mm-hmm.
just come off Salmonich, go with the starter there. Lyles has upside. He's going to be lower owned, but just inconsistent generally speaking. And I don't think they need to go big against the Pels here, who only have Joe Val probably in that center rotation. I can't imagine they're going to be playing a bunch of Cody Zeller here or anything like that. So don't mind Lyles, but I definitely think Samanich is the safest as long as he starts.
Yeah, I mean, model order is Samanich, Lyles, and then Baisley, but I think I would still just take the shots on Baisley over Trey Lyles. If you're playing small field, Trey Lyles, but like for large field stuff, I'd rather take my chances on Baisley's ceiling, I think.
Yeah.
But anyways, you have any final words, Nick? This is my last show of the year, guys. So appreciate you being here all season. Maybe you'll see me again next season. We got 2 more shows with I think it's Nick and Eric, and then Eric and Jayhawk. So you get to see everybody one more time. But really appreciate you guys tuning in all season. You want to follow me? I'm on Twitter at Chuck Silver DFS. I don't really post much, but maybe I will. We're starting to get into best ball off season for the
Oh, yeah.
NFL. Super into it. So we'll be doing streams right here on the channel. But yeah, really appreciate you guys. Thank you. Nick, anything else you want to add?
No, yeah, just it's been real, man. Definitely enjoyed doing shows with you all year. I know we'll
Yeah.
both stay active in the staff chat and Discord, so we won't be strangers. But yeah, I got another show tomorrow, and we're winding the season down. But I'm heavily involved in MLB, working on the plug every day. So yeah, guys, just keep an eye on lineups tonight. Again, can't emphasize that enough. Like we like to project who we think's going to start. There's no rhyme or reason to these teams that have nothing to play for. So just
Yeah.
keep an eye on those things, and yeah, sign up in Discord so you can stay in touch with us during the off season.
And Unicorn Love, thanks again. Because of you guys, I won $40,000. I mean, dude, shout out to you, man. Like
Yeah, man.
that was so fun. And it's not because of us. We might have helped contribute to that, but that was all you, dude. So, dude, congrats again on that. That's awesome, man. It's the best comments I want to see.
I know. More of those.
But yeah, I will see you guys next time. Thanks.